So I just want to make this video to tell you guys what happened to me and my family, and to just be candid about everything. If you've been listening and watching the channel, you know, I've kind of alluded to something that occurred. I haven't really gone into detail with it yet, but I think it's a very important story to tell, because there are some warnings and there are some things that must be changed. And while we're in the crypto world, there are some issues going on out there that are bigger than just crypto. And these are the types of issues that need to be fixed, or people are going to get killed. Was I almost killed? It's hard to say. The way that things occur in the story was in a very special circumstance, something that isn't usually the case. And that's what led this to be a safer situation than it could have been. But let's get into it. Now, for those of you who might be unfamiliar with what swatting is, who haven't seen any of the Netflix docs, swatting is when, usually as a prank, a call is made to the police that says something very extreme, that a serious violent felony is currently active and happening, and the SWAT team's got to get there and stop it. In my case, what you'll find out is that they called and said that I had just murdered my kids, all three of them, and I was getting ready to go in and kill my wife. And then, I kid you not, they literally said, and then I'm gonna drive off in my Lambo. So obviously the person who did this knew that I had a Lamborghini. So this results in a SWAT team coming to your house. And since they think they're coming to a violent crime and you're at your home living your normal best life, this creates a lot of confusion and a lot of tension. People have literally been murdered because they were confused on what was going on. They thought it was someone breaking in, but it was the cops. It was the SWAT team. That's why the actual charge that people who get caught swatting others with is attempted murder, because it really is an attempt to take your life. That's what this person did to me. Still standing. Now, the timing on how this occurred is very interesting. So you go back to the week of September 26th. That was the week I started talking about FTX. I started talking about this federal bit license. It was the week that Brett Harrison stepped down. In fact, the morning that Brett Harrison stepped down from FTX, we talked about it on the live stream quite a lot. Now, I don't want to accuse Sam or FTX of being the people that did this to me, but I do know that their modus operandi is to go after people that go after them. Fast forward to September 30th, Friday. September 30th, went to the Braves game. Braves versus Mets. It was a great game. We won with my family, but we got home at about 1:30. Traffic was bad. It was really late, and I had to actually leave from my house and come up to my office in order to fill out some paperwork for my hunt in Alaska. It was due the next morning. So I was up at the office very late. I left here, I got here maybe about 2, I left at about 3 while I was filling out that paperwork. I got an email while I was here at the office. And it basically was someone telling me they wanted to extort me. They had my driver's license number, my social security number. They did have them, they showed it in the email. They then said that if I want to keep creating memories with my family, the only way I was gonna be able to do that was gonna pay them $150,000 in Bitcoin, $150,000 in ETH, and $150,000 in Solana. They also wanted some of my NFTs. They wanted my CryptoPunk, they wanted my Mutant Ape, my Bored Ape, my Kindle Club Ape. All this added up to about $650,000 at the time. Now, they sent me this email and they did have some information on me. What do you guys think I did? Within 1 minute of receiving that email, I basically responded and said, good luck, I'm locked and loaded. Death threats don't scare me, guys. I don't know if you've been able to figure that out. I live in the South, and we take those things a little bit differently than other people do. So I'm very protected. And so I never feel like I'm really threatened or in danger. Well, after I sent that email, I come home, and I got home about 3:30. That's when it happened. So basically the story starts here in my bedroom. It's 4 o'clock in the morning. My wife is asleep. This is where our bed was. And you know, we started hearing all these sirens. You know, it sounded like they were way out here, but they were really loud and they kept going, and they just didn't stop. So I went in here, I'm getting ready to go to bed. I am brushing my teeth. As I'm here brushing my teeth, I start hearing what sounds to be like a walkie-talkie or a radio or something like that. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, this could be really close. So this is when I walk back this way and I go to this window because I'm thinking maybe I'll see something. So I look out the window. I don't see a single thing. Kind of weird, huh? Nothing. So I decide at this point to go look out front. And I look down next to the door and I see police lights flashing everywhere off of the left side of my wall. So I go down here to check. I come and I look out this side first, which isn't a great angle, and I see blue lights everywhere. So then I come back over here, I look out, and I see, man, it's hard to say how many. It looked like maybe 15 cop cars, but they were like maybe about 50 feet away from my driveway. And so to me, it looked like it was at the house on the right, the first house on the right in the neighborhood. And so, you know, I'm excited. I'm like, what's going on? There's something crazy going on in the neighborhood. Nobody would want to know this more than my wife. So I'm going to go upstairs and wake her up. So at this point, I kind of reach over my bed, I grab my wife's foot, because, you know, wives love when you grab their foot. And I shook her, I said, honey, there's something going on. There's something going on downstairs. You got to come see it. There's cops everywhere. And of course, what does she say? I'm right there, and jumps right up. So she was really excited to be a nosy neighbor with me. So we come back downstairs together. And this is when my wife says, let's go out the front. Honey, you can't go out the front. They're going to see us creeping. We don't want that. We want to move secretly in stealth. Let's go out the back door and we'll walk around. So we start heading towards the back door. I've got my hand basically on the door handle here, and she's right behind me. And then she says, I want to go get some shoes. At this point, I've got a tank top, shorts, and no shoes on. She's got to go get shoes. And I say, okay, honey, don't worry. I'm going to go by myself. So I open the door and I walk out. I walk right here on my back concrete pad. And right about the time I get here, all of a sudden the 7 SWAT team members bust through. And it's very surreal because I had heard the walkie-talkies on the other side. I knew they were close, but they busted in through the gate and they came in guns drawn, like 7 AR-15s pointed right at me. And they are on me in a second. And the first thing I hear is, hands up, hands up, hands up, hands up. I've got this image of all of these, you know, guns pointed at me while I'm raising my hands. And I'm not that worried because I think that there's some confusion. I don't think they're here after me. If I would have known they were here after me, like what would have changed, I don't really know. But it was definitely a scary sight seeing like all those guns drawn right at me. All it takes is one itchy trigger finger, you know, for somebody to do something that could have destroyed my life and my family's life forever. So as I'm walking backwards right here, all of a sudden they start surrounding me in a circle with their guns drawn. So I'm coming back here to a spot. They keep having me walk, but now they're like in a circle around me with guns pointed at me. And they tell me to go ahead and drop on my knees. So I drop on my knees. I'm still got guns pointed right at my head. And they have me put my hands behind my back. Now, to be fair, when you were told what the guy who swatted me said, he said that I had murdered my 3 kids and was getting ready to go murder my wife. They could have been a little rougher with me, and they were not. Maybe because I just seemed so docile when I came out. They didn't throw me on the ground. They weren't rough with me. So shout out to the Paulding County SWAT team for that. And I'm thinking, I'm cuffed now. At this point, they're going to talk to me like a normal person. So they stood me up, and I'm ready to answer questions because I'm thinking once I'm cuffed, now I can explain this, what's going on. No, that didn't happen immediately. A cop behind me said, take him to the car. And the guy just started dragging me like this and, walked me basically out front here. So it was a Ford Explorer, I believe it was an SUV anyways. The cop car they put me in the back of. Sitting about right here. Now, we kept the blinds in our house up about 2 feet because our dogs would always chew on them. So as I'm sitting here in the police car, I'm telling the guy, hey, I don't know what's going on. Right about the time the cop goes back in, I realize what happened.
After they take Ben, they come in and they meet. I'm standing here, and there's 7 or 8 police officers or SWAT team members, and they all come in with their assault rifles, and they start yelling like, how many people are in the house? And I tell them like, it's just us and our children. And they say, where are the kids? Where are the kids? Where are the kids? And it's 4 a.m. So I'm like, they're asleep upstairs. And then they said, we have to see them now. We need to check on the kids. The entire time I'm thinking, like, you just think that the neighbor has gotten away from you and is in our house. So, of course, you can come and see that our kids are safe. So we start walking upstairs. We come upstairs and they want to see into each of the children's rooms to make sure that the kids are okay. So we come in here, all 7, 8 SWAT team members file into the bedroom. They check to make sure that my kids are safe and very much asleep. And then we do that for each room. So as we're checking through each room, there's no explanation given as to what they're looking for. They're just wanting to check on our kids. So we go into this last room. They can confirm that all 3 of our children are sleeping, and then we head back downstairs. And at this point, I'm really unsure, like, what is happening? What is going on? Otis, of course, did nothing. That bulldog. So when we get down here, they just start saying, like, okay, like, do you know that your husband called? And, like, do you understand what's happening? And I was like, I don't even know why you're here. And they were like, what? And there was a moment where, like, all 7 SWAT team members are staring at me and I'm staring at them, and we're just waiting for some sort of explanation to come from either one of us. Finally, the one gentleman said they received a 911 call, and that the call said that Ben had called, and he said that he had murdered his 3 children, that he had left, and he was coming back, and he was going to murder me. And so that's why they wanted to check on our children. I just was like, he didn't do that. He didn't do that. And they were like, does he do this often? Are there things that we need to know about as far as, like, mental health? And I was like, no, there's no problems. I don't understand. And then they said, does he even have a job? And the second they said that, I realized, oh, we've been swatted. So I said, you know, actually, he has a job. He's a YouTuber. He's got a lot of followers, and not everyone likes him. And so I think our home's been swatted. And they asked me to go find Ben's phone to prove that he didn't make the 911 call. And then they said, okay, like, I gave them the phone. They were able to show it. And by this time, they took him out. We all walked outside. Ben got out of the car, and they confirmed that, yeah, we had been swatted.
We talked about all kinds of things. There's somebody in my county who's been swatted like 7 times who owns crypto. So we've got a big problem with swatting here in the Paulding County area. And I know there's a lot of places around the country that they're having these problems as well. So I had to, of course, in front of my wife, I had to basically confess that earlier in the night I had gotten a threatening email talking about extorting me. That definitely triggered off this entire thing. I like to protect my wife from stuff like that if I can help it, because I don't see these things as really valid threats. But this one, you know what? It definitely did turn into something. It's being investigated still by the FBI. And hopefully we can get some answers at some point. So this is something that we're having to deal with the repercussions of. Kids asking questions. Are we safe? My daughter woke up and saw 7 SWAT team members with guns over her head. She's 9. She said, oh, I just knew I need to stay in bed. That's nightmare fuel for kids. And that's a real thing that she had to go through now. Why? Because her dad's a YouTuber and some people out there don't like me or want to get my money.
I think the effect that it had on our family, it's been a very traumatic thing to process. Our kids have had multiple panic attacks, a lot of anxiety. They just don't feel safe anymore. It's a very eerie feeling to hear an emergency siren and to know that there are brave men and women who are going to aid someone. But that sound for our family makes us all pause, because we hear that and we know, well, they could be coming to our house.
We must change things going forward. Tim Pool also was recently swatted again. Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's actually my congresswoman, she's been swatted 9 times. We need to call on regulation. I'm not a legal expert, but what we need is we need change. And we need a federal mandate, a federal system that all SWAT team precincts interact with that makes the chances of this happening fewer and further between. In my investigation in this, I did a lot of investigation. I figured out there's all these Telegram groups where you go and you can join and do they got all kinds of services. They have one called Bricking, where they will literally take a note, write it to a brick, and then send you a video of them throwing it through whatever window you want it thrown through. Murder, SIM card swapping, of course, swatting.
And it's a very scary thing for a child to see multiple police officers in our home with assault rifles. And, for us to try to explain and say, like, they're trying to protect us. They're seeking out the truth. But at the same time, it takes away that sense of security that our home, that we've worked so hard to like establish in our home. Like, you're in our home, you're home, you're safe. You don't have to worry about things like that. Our kids have gone to counseling. I think that they're trying to process it the best way they can, but it's hard for them to understand that just because someone may disagree with things that their dad says, that means that they are at risk, that their safety is at risk. That's a hard thing for them to understand. No one should have their family feel at risk because someone disagrees with their opinion.
Do you know how much it costs to get cops sent out to somebody's house? 25 bucks. Do you know how much it costs to send an entire SWAT team? $50. These are outsourced services in India and Africa mainly. You pay a very small amount, they have no accountability, they will never get caught. So what they do is they call the non-emergency police line. That doesn't geolocate your phone. So they just go by whatever phone number they say they have on file. They use one of my old phone numbers. They called the right city, but not the right county. So the local city department here forwarded the call to the Paulding County SWAT team. Well, what's interesting here is, why would someone who just murdered someone be calling on the non-emergency police line? What would you call? 911. If it is this serious, you would call 911. This is what they're trying to get around. I believe one really simple fix to this would be, that would slow this down, if you call the non-emergency police line, but it is of a certain urgency, that it's got to go through the 911 system so they can geolocate it. That will stop a lot of these foreign companies from being able to do this. Yes, there are still ways around it, but the 911 geo-targeted service is actually extremely good and hard to break compared to most any other kind of calling service that would use a geolocating system. But almost every one of these situations involving swatting, it's kind of the same story. It always involves something very extreme, way more extreme than they would usually get a call over. Sometimes, obviously, from an accent that doesn't seem to match the person. I believe there's a system where we can create a series of red flags that if it reaches a certain threshold, the SWAT team members know, okay, this could be serious, but you need to go in a little less elevated with your emotions, because likely we're dealing with a swatting situation here. That if we can push for legislation, I think we can get this done in 2023. People's lives are at stake. I don't want this to be you. I don't want this to be my friends here on Crypto YouTube. We want to create an environment where everyone is safe from swatting. And I think together we can do that. That's the point of this video. The FBI are still investigating, and we do have some leads. The end results of being able to keep more people safe, they dwarf the importance of my individual case being solved. And I think that's the takeaway here. I want to know down below in the comments, have you or anyone you know ever been swatted? Also, I want to know, what do you think we can do to make swatting not even a thing? How can we change the system that we have and get precincts to work together in order to create a safer environment for its citizens? That's all I got. Be blessed. BitBoy out.